J.K. Simmons, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Selma Blair are just some of the famous names to come from Michigan. But exploring the picturesque midwestern state further, you'll find yourself chilled at some of the other famous names to emerge, including the co-ed killer, John Norman Collins, and Ailen Wuornos. It is no secret that Michigan is home to many unsolved mysteries and ruthless serial killers. In today's video, we'll be exploring two terrifying cold cases from Michigan. But first, I'd like to thank Magellan TV for sponsoring today's episode. If you're a true crime fan, chances are you've heard discussions around the web about Magellan TV, the #1 source for the best and most original true crime content available on Earth. You know about their well-crafted documentaries and brilliant television shows, and how they expand beyond true crime to deliver unbelievable outlooks into other subjects like science or culture or the paranormal. In other words, there is always something to binge. To give you a better glance into the countless videos within the Magellan TV library, we want to talk a little more in depth about one of our favorite titles we recently saw, one that we know will make you fall in love with Magellan TV all over again. This week we're highlighting the true crime documentary The Writer with No Hands, The Case of Gary DeVore, a 54-minute film giving us a never-before-seen investigation into the murder of a Hollywood screenwriter. A professor by the name of Matthew Alford collects key testimonies from witnesses and digs through the underbelly of Hollywood to tell a one-of-a-kind tale about the CIA's involvement in the titular man's unsolved death. It is a brilliant mixture of history and conspiracy, while never going overboard or becoming unbelievable. It uses all of the evidence to build a credible case and humanizes the victim through conversations with their family. It is the perfect mix of true crime and victim advocacy, exactly how we curate our own videos on Cold Case Detective. The Writer with No Hands is also a new release, part of Magellan TV's 15 to 20 hours of brand new content they add to their library each week, always leaving fans of true crime and other relevant topics with something fresh to binge and enjoy. So use the link in the description to access a free month trial and jump into the history of The Writer with No Hands and other top-notch documentaries. And now let's dive in with today's mysteries. Patricia Spencer and Pamela Hobley. It was a cool day on October 31st of 1969 as 15-year-old Pamela Pam Sue Hobley and 16-year-old Patricia Patty Ann Spencer left their school together in the community of Oscoda. The two teens were not known to be friends, but local rumor indicated that the two may have experimented with drugs and alcohol, suggesting to some online sleuths that the pair bonded over their shared experiences. It is believed that the two girls left school early that day, skipping their afternoon classes to head to an unknown destination. According to some reports on the case, a bomb scare may have made this truancy possible, as it was perhaps easier to slip out unnoticed in any havoc that may have taken place at the establishment. While the two were heading to somewhere unknown, both had made it clear to their families earlier in the day that they would be attending their school's homecoming football game in the evening, and then heading to a party afterwards. Pam noted that she would be accompanying her friends and boyfriend to the event. Initially, the last known sighting of the girls was when they walked down River Road, away from their school and towards the business district. However, in 2013, a witness came forward stating that he had actually driven the girls to a gas station at River Road and Interstate 23. He expressed confusion that investigators didn't already know this, as he had reportedly told the police at the time that he had given the pair a lift. Detectives noted that they had no such reports in their case files. It is unclear why or how this mix-up occurred, but regardless, the witness was cleared of any involvement in the teens' disappearances. On that Halloween night, Pam's mother, Lois, who was a single mother of 3 girls, returned home from trick-or-treating with her 2 youngest daughters, only to be made aware by Pam's boyfriend that she hadn't arrived at the party or attended the school football game. Following this discovery, Lois called the parents of some of her daughter's friends and classmates and learned that Patty was also missing and had also failed to show up to the 2 events. Alarmed by this, the families of both girls reported them missing. Over the next few days, friends and family were interviewed by police as they tried to track the pair's last known movements and figure out where they might have gone. It was originally believed that the teens had left of their own volition and had fled to the city of Flint. Their families, particularly Pam's, were not convinced. Pam's sister later told the media that she didn't believe the 15-year-old had run away because she was at a good point in her life and seemed happy. She'd also recently become engaged to her boyfriend. Furthermore, neither girl had taken their ID, handbag, nor a change of clothes, suggesting they didn't intend to be gone for long. A week passed, and neither of the girls made contact with their loved ones. At this point, investigators began to theorize that something more sinister may have taken place that Halloween. Eventually, detectives began to wonder if the girls had continued to hitchhike and suggested that if they had, they may have fallen victim to an unsavory character. They theorized that the pair were abducted by 2 or more perpetrators and were eventually murdered. A link to the Oakland County child killer was explored, but this connection appears to be unlikely. One lead led investigators to a makeshift grave in the woods, but it turned out to be an animal that was buried beneath the earth. Desperate for answers, Pam's family offered a $1,000 reward for any information that would bring back their missing loved one, but this money was never claimed. Due to a lack of leads and witnesses, the case quickly turned cold. 16 years later, in 1985, the police were given a tip that claimed the 2 teenagers had been murdered by 2 area men and buried near a barn that was used by teenagers throwing parties. Decades later, in 2010, the case was re-examined by a new team who re-interviewed friends, family, and any potential witnesses. Around this time, the site of the barn named in the tip, which was located on Brooks Road and was in 1969 owned by a man named Jack Searle, was investigated using excavation tools and cadaver dogs. However, no signs of human remains or items belonging to the girls were found. It is unclear if Jack Searle was ever considered a person of interest. Additionally, other areas frequented by teenagers in 1969 were investigated, but turned up nothing. In 2011, one of Pam's sisters, Mary, who was just 8 when the teenager vanished, told the media that her family believe the 2 girls are dead. She told the Oscoda Press, "Pam and Patty are dead. The families know this in the deepest valleys of our souls. We do not know why, we do not know how, but someone does." Mary continues to try and keep the case alive. Both Pam's parents and grandparents have died in the years since the 15-year-old disappeared, never knowing what happened to their beloved daughter and granddaughter. In recent years, the Oscoda Township Police Department has noted that their biggest challenge now is the age of the case. They believe it is solvable, but think time is making things difficult. In 2013, investigators stated that they had identified a person of interest, but they needed further information for the case to continue. It is worth noting here that Pam's boyfriend has never been considered a suspect or a person of interest. The DNA of both girls has been obtained and is on file so that comparisons can be made to any Jane Does matching their descriptions. Pam's dentals are also on file, although Patty's are not. Neither girl's fingerprints have been obtained. Patricia Ann Spencer and Pamela Sue Hobley were both last seen on Halloween of 1969, walking down River Road away from their school and towards the business district of Oscoda. The last witness sighting of them is by a man who provided them with a lift and dropped them at River Road and Interstate 23. They have not been seen or heard from again. Patricia was just 16 years old at the time, standing between 5'3" and 5'4" and weighing around 120 pounds. She is described as a white woman with brownish blonde hair and blue eyes. She is supposed to wear glasses, but was not wearing them at the time of her disappearance. She uses the nickname Patty and has a dog bite scar on one of her legs. She was last seen wearing a grey and green plaid jacket, a brown sweater, a matching brown tweed or plaid skirt, brown shoes with a thick heel, and a silver necklace with a peace symbol-shaped pendant on it. Pamela was just 15 at the time of her disappearance. She is described as a white woman with brown hair and brown eyes, and has a scar on the bridge of her nose. Additionally, she has another scar or birthmark on the left corner of her mouth. She uses the nickname Pam, and is between 5'6" and 5'8", and weighed between 100 and 115 pounds when she was last seen. When she went missing, she was wearing a 3/4 length white faux fur coat with brown trim, a long-sleeved blouse with ruffled cuffs, a brown and white plaid skirt, knee-high socks, and chunky shoes with a thick heel. If the girls are still alive, Patty would be 68 years old, and Pam would be 67. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has, in recent years, released images of what the girls may look like. Patty's image shows her at 60, and Pam's shows her at 57. If you have any information about this case, you can contact the Oscoda Township Police Department on 989-759-9113. Alternatively, you can call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678. Kimberly King. Described by her loved ones as a spirited, good-hearted risk-taker, 12-year-old Kimberly Kim Alice King was known to be fun-loving and adventurous. Her best friend since 4th grade, Annie Godbout, lived across the road from her in the autumn of 1979 in the city of Warren, and was one of the last people to see her alive before she went missing. Kim spent part of the 15th of September with Annie at her home, after telling her grandparents that she would be sleeping over there. Instead, however, as dusk came and the sky grew dark, Kim hopped over the fence in Annie's back garden and waved goodbye as she headed off, hoping to meet her sister. The pair had made plans to go to the cinema, but Kathy King never showed up. She was unable to secure the car for the evening, and her father's home in Waterford had no telephone, meaning she was unable to let her sister know that she couldn't make it. Still, back in Warren, Kim decided to head to 11 Mile, located in Roseville, Michigan, which was a popular place for teens and preteens to hang out at the time. Kim enjoyed visiting the area and would often hitchhike her way there. She hoped that Kathy would turn up and the pair could hang out that evening, but of course Kathy never showed up there either. According to Annie, Kim would often stay out late and sneak out without her grandparents knowing. While she wasn't a troublemaker necessarily, she had a mischievous streak and liked to take herself off on adventures. This also wasn't the first time that the 12-year-old had lied about her whereabouts. She reportedly hatched a similar plan before and turned up at Annie's door at 7 a.m. the following morning. Annie, for her part, described herself as more of a bystander in life, preferring to watch her best friend have all the excitement rather than participating herself. Between 11 and 11:30 that night, Kim called her other sister, Connie. When asked about where she was, Kim claimed that she was just down the road from her grandparents at a nearby phone box. Connie, concerned for her younger sister, told the 12-year-old to either return home or go to Annie's house, and Kim said she would, but she never returned to either location. Annie waited for her best friend to show up into the early hours of the morning, and became distressed when she didn't. Later that morning, she received a phone call from Kim's anxious grandmother, who asked her if she knew where Kim was. Annie told her she didn't know, but explained what had happened the previous night. Within the next few hours, the police were called to the scene. Initially, investigators suspected that 12-year-old Kim had left on her own accord. Her sister Kathy had a history of running away, and so they surmised that Kim had the same attitude and temperament. However, Annie, as well as Kim's family members, didn't believe she'd just leave, noting that while Kim enjoyed having fun and sneaking around, she would never leave her loved ones hanging without any answers. They felt that something had gone terribly wrong. Law enforcement were unable to determine what phone booth Kim used on the night of her disappearance. While she claimed that she was using one on the corner near her grandparents' house, a witness saw her using a phone from the party store at Marmon and 9 Mile instead. Phone records were never pulled from either booth, and there was no nearby CCTV that could be used to help track the young girl's movements. Following Kim's disappearance, almost the entire local community was interviewed, both professionally by authorities and casually by friends and family. The preteen sisters heard that their siblings had made it to Roseville, but her movements afterwards are unclear. Nobody had seen her leave, and nobody knew where she had gone. Tips uncovered by investigators led to interviews, but no further, and detectives learned that she may have traveled to Grand Rapids, Michigan after she went missing. But this lead didn't pan out. It wasn't long before authorities came to a dead end. For some time, law enforcement believed that Kim's disappearance was the work of the Oakland County child killer, an unidentified serial killer who took the lives of 4 children around the ages of 10 and 12 between 1976 and 1977. The perpetrator's victims were held captive for several days before they were murdered. While Kim fits the profile of many of the killer's victims, if her case is his work, then it would be an outlier, as the culprit is known to leave his victims unhidden on the side of the road. Conversely, Kim has never been found, and neither have her remains. Another suspect in Kim's case, and in the Oakland County child killer's case, is David Norberg, who worked in Warren in 1979 and lived just 2 streets away from the 12-year-old. Norberg was killed in a car accident near Recluse, Wyoming in 1981, and has never been charged with any of the child killings or in connection with Kim's disappearance. Following his death, however, jewelry allegedly belonging to several of the child killer's victims was found in his home. In 1999, his body was exhumed, and his DNA was compared to a strand of hair that was found on the body of Timothy King, the child killer's final victim. 3 years later, however, authorities announced that the hair was not a match to Norberg. It is unclear if Norberg was the killer, or if he was involved with Kim's disappearance. Investigators believe he may have been involved with the 12-year-old's abduction, even if he is not the serial slayer. The third suspect in Kim's case is a man named Arthur Ream. This announcement came in 2018, when her disappearance was freshly examined by investigators. In 2008, Ream was found guilty of the murder of 13-year-old Cindy Zarichki, a young girl who was dating his son in 1986 and had gone missing around that same time. Ream lured Cindy to a Dairy Cream in East Point, claiming that he was organizing a surprise party for his son. He then abducted and killed her, and buried her body around 30 miles outside Detroit. After he was charged with the crime, he led investigators to this location so that Cindy's remains could be recovered. At this same time, Ream was already in prison serving 15 years for molesting a 14-year-old girl. Additionally, between 1974 and 1978, he was in jail after being convicted of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old. In 2018, authorities dug up the area where Ream had buried Cindy, looking for more bodies. They had received information that he bragged in prison about killing between 4 and 6 other victims. Law enforcement was sure that Ream had buried his other victims nearby, but were unable to locate any other human remains, including Kim's. So far, it does not appear that Ream has confessed to authorities regarding Kim's case, nor any of the other cases he is suspected of being involved in, and updates since 2018 have been few and far between. Kim's grandmother passed away in 1995, but her sisters continue to look for answers. Annie hopes that one day they'll be able to find some real closure. Prior to her death, Kim's grandmother purchased a cemetery plot for her. 12-year-old Kimberly Alice King was last seen on the night of September 15th, 1979, when she left the home of her best friend Annie in Warren. After this, she may have been in the area of 11 Mile, located in Roseville, Michigan. Between 11 and 11:30 p.m., she spoke on the phone with one of her sisters. She has never been seen or heard from again. Kimberly is described as a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, standing at around 5'5". She weighed approximately 105 pounds when she was last seen, and was wearing a blue sweater and jeans. She uses the nickname Kim, and has a gap between her upper front teeth. Her upper incisor is described as being peg-shaped. If Kim is still alive, she will be 55 years old. If you have any information about her disappearance or her whereabouts, you can contact the Warren Police Department at 586-574-4700. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own theories and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.